presentation that our administrative staff has put together, we feel is pretty important because of the community that Whittier College Athletics is to the institution as a whole. So I'm going to go over today 3 or 4 sections of the administrative aspect of what we're kind of experienced during this this COVID-19 period, and then Tricia Senyo, our Senior Women Administrator and Compliance Coordinator, will talk a little bit about eligibility and about the training room, and a little bit about what eligibility will look like during this COVID time. So during this, if you have any questions, you can use the chat function down at the bottom, and Lance Franey, our Director of Communications, Associate Athletic Director in charge of communications, along with Mike Rizzo, will support that chat function. And at the end of the presentation, we'll try to answer some of the questions that may not have been answered during the presentation. So kind of hang in there. Yesterday, we had a little bit over 100 people on this. Today, we're pretty much around the same. So once again, I think we'll be better as once this is over than we were when we came in. So with that being said, go ahead, Trish. Once again, I just wanted to introduce, I'm Rock Carter, Director of Athletics here at Whittier College, and a longtime employee. I've been an Associate Athletic Director for 12 years, and I was the men's basketball coach prior to the athletic directorship. Trish? Some of the things that you guys may already know, but I do want to make sure that you hear it coming from us, is the decisions that we've had to make here at Whittier College from an administrative level is really being based on a lot of different factors. And currently, LA County's guidelines are what we are going by in terms of institutional rule. So for those of you who hung around today and are watching the news a lot, today they did talk at the 1 o'clock press conference about higher education. Whittier College is following the recommendations and the guidelines by the County of LA, which basically says that we will not have students on campus, and that our education will be remote this year, at least the first fall semester. Housing will only be available for international students and students who anticipate facing housing insecurity. And if you have not reported that you are having housing insecurities, I think it's important that you do contact our Office of Student Affairs, and they'll investigate, they'll walk you through some steps, and we'll try to see if we can assist you in getting to campus. But it's only for people, obviously, that have insecurities or are international students. Some of the common questions that have been asked to our staff, as well as the administration staff here at Whittier College, I just want to touch base on a few of them. But one of them is, currently there's no reduction in tuition costs. We are excited that we've had opportunity. I know some of you students, the returning students that experienced this back on March 12th, and then on March 19th or 30th or whatever that date was, we were right back in the classroom. Well, we've had a little bit of opportunity and time throughout the summer to get this remote learning down a little bit better. So our professors do have better access to online learning. And the goal is to make sure that our students continue to make progress towards their academic goals and degrees. So my point there is it's going to be better in the fall, maybe, than we experienced in the spring. And I think a lot of institutions can say that. We'll continue to have access to our student support programs. And we're going to this new system, this module system that Tricia will discuss with you in a few minutes. And a little bit of that has to do with to create an engaging environment. Going to just 2 courses over a 7-week span, so that you're not bogged down with 14 consecutive weeks of 4 courses. Currently, the county, we are at Whittier College, are a institution of higher learning. We are not a gym, we are not a park or a rec, because we have open fields. So in March, the guidelines were never lifted that were established in March for higher education. So We do not have students on campus now, and we do not have staff on campus as well. A few of us are considered essential, although our whole staff is essential, but a few of us in terms and in name is essential, and we do come in periodically. Keep in mind that this is very fluid and that our plan and the plan of Whittier College is contingent on the guidance for the Los Angeles County for institutions of higher education. Once again, it's not gyms, it's not rec centers, it's not open fields and parks, but it's for higher education institutions. Trish? Some things that looking forward, we know where we're at now, but one of the things that we've talked a little bit, housing for spring, the students, if we are able to come back in the spring, which would be module 3 or module 1 that starts in the spring in a January 5th start date, the students will keep today, once again, it's very fluid, but they will keep their fall single room housing assignments if we're able to come back. We've had a lot of discussion about financial aid packages. They will be reviewed and they can be adjusted now that we've moved off campus. If your package was adjusted, if financial aid within the next, if they haven't already, within the next 10, 12 days, they'll reach out to you and discuss what was adjusted and how they're going to do it. If you decide, and Trish will talk about this, Tricia will talk about this relatively soon. If you decide to take a gap year or a semester off and then return to Whittier College without significant change in your family income, then the original award package, the original package awarded this year will be honored. But once again, if there are significant changes in the FAFSA or other sources of income, then it will probably be adjusted. In terms of work awards, this is still a discussion that we are having from an administrative standpoint, not just athletics, but throughout campus. There are positions available. The biggest problem is there's just not as many positions because the positions available for the fall semester have to be done remotely. Last year in athletics alone, we had 130 positions, right around there. And this year, we probably have about 7 or 8. So every effort is being made to fulfill work award amounts, and every department within the institution is being asked to work with human resources to enable our students to get and complete that award. Tricia? A little bit about the SCIAC. So we're not like, we're like everybody else in terms of no schools will be on campus during the fall. Because of that, we will not have practice. We will not have fall sports, and that includes non-traditional seasons such as spring sports practicing in the fall. Our facilities will not be open until there is a relaxation in the guidelines. They will not be open to our students or to the public in general as well. The conference athletic administrators are working on scheduling for the fall as well as the spring. Our focus now is on winter and spring, and they have and we are including fall sports. I will guarantee you that all these schedules will be modified. We're not going to be playing as many contests, and there is a significant amount of practice time that will be modified as well. We are continuing to work on conference championships. Maybe not all teams will be involved in the conference championships, but we're still using that as part of our model, and as well, and understand too that this will not change until at least January. So we will not be coming back in October or November, but we've committed to seeing what we can do to get this started as early as we can, and we anticipate that being sometime in January. Some of you might not know, but the NCAA Division III has canceled all the fall championship sports for championships. And so there will not be fall championships. As of now, the NCAA still has our winter and our spring championships. So a lot of our schedules will be focused towards ending so that we can get into championship mode if allowed by our conference and by the state of California. Before we get started, we've worked very hard with Savannah Kurt Fox, Coach Anderson, strength and conditioning coach, and Coach Sinyo. And we've talked a lot about the safety provisions that will be in place, the types of practices that we're going to have, and what a practice might look like. And then once again, we do have plans in place if we do get some cases of COVID. We're working really close with our health department as well as the rest of the institution to figure out quarantine areas and to what degree do we have to quarantine. And so those are still very, very flexible, but we have a few plans in place as we talk tonight. One thing that's really come across our desk a lot is what would a practice look like? We can guarantee that there'll be limited personnel out there. And for the most part, the players will probably participate in small functional groups. If it's a 90-minute practice, we're anticipating the last 15 to 30 minutes, maybe full team stuff, but it might be groups of 6, 8, however many, contingent on the size of the squad. And most of the practices will not overlap. So if we have a team practicing on the field, there'll probably be a good 15 minutes prior to the next team taking the field. That way that, we're trying to limit the direct contact with people outside of our team. Tricia? Just to give you a couple quick bullet points on what the NCAA has talked about, things that we're already following. Member schools must adhere to federal, state, and local guidelines. And then the NCAA obviously has their guidelines. Right now, as you guys may have known or see on TV, there's a big battle on whether we're going to have football or not in certain areas. California is not allowed to, and that was one reason why the Pac-12 made their decision, being that there are 4 significant schools in California in the Pac-12. All of our fall sports activities, once again, or spring when we get back in January, we will adhere by the NCAA's guidelines to re-socialize and continue playing. Any student athlete is allowed to opt out of participation due to concerns. This is really a Division I rule. If you have a scholarship at a Division I or II school, they can't take the scholarship away. And then us at our level, I would think that our coaches with discussion would, we're not going to kick anybody out of a program that's not comfortable coming back to participate. You'll still be a member of our athletic community. Member schools may not require student athletes to waive legal rights regarding COVID-19. We had no intention, nor will we ask you to waive a right in order to play. If we decide to have athletics and are allowed to have athletics, we will not require you to waive the right. We will go through the right procedures and protocols that are recommended by the NCAA. Trish? Once again, the fall championships are canceled. The NCAA has said that they will emphasize the winter and spring. Testing strategies will be implemented for all athletic activities when we do return, and that's going to be something that's going to be institutional. So the NCAA is not paying for it. The student athletes probably will not have to pay for it. And so that might be another issue that we'll have to address as we get closer to it. And then some of the strategies that they've talked about is having to obtain and making sure that the tests have been read within the 72 hour. And also all students have to have had a test read prior to competing against an outside source or team. So these are some of the things that the NCAA has put together to help protect us. Trish? So I'm going to turn this over to Tricia Sinyo, our Senior Women Administrator, Compliance and Eligibility. And once again, if you have any questions as we're going through these, or you just something pops into your head, put it through the chat forum. And at the very end of this, Tricia will, or Lance Franey will ask the question, and we'll try to answer it the best of our ability. Go ahead, Tricia.
Hey, hi, everybody. My contact info is listed on the site right now. It's best to reach me at the email, the office number. I'm in and out of the office, so it's probably easiest and most efficient to reach me at the email address. I'm going to open this section up with, I'm going to be a little bit more vague as to the specificities of each program and each student athlete based on where you're at with graduation, where you're at with current progress towards degree, i.e. whether you're a first year all the way up to a senior, and or also if you are a fall, winter, or sport athlete. All of those components are really going to come together differently. So when it comes to very specific advisement as to if you're going to graduate in the fall, if you're going to graduate in the spring, where are you at your progress towards degree, and how could you extend your time at Whittier College? Those are going to be really individual situations that I'd rather us walk through separately outside of the webinar. So I'm going to be a little bit more broad when we're going through those situations as we enter into this process. So to open up the conversation, we've got Division III eligibility requirements that are pre-COVID, and then eligibility and season competition as we're going post-COVID. So to discuss the differences between Division III eligibility and Division I and II, respectively, within NCAA, how we note eligibility for Division III is the number of full-time semesters that you are enrolled anywhere. So whether that's an institution prior to Whittier, concurrently with Whittier, or after Whittier, as a Division III program, we're going to gauge it with how many full-time semesters you have. So it's not the normal clock that you would see at a Division I or a Division II institution. So with that being said, you've got 10 full-time semesters to use 4 seasons of eligibility. Also within that, it doesn't matter which sports or how many sports, you only have 10 full-time semesters to utilize all of those years of eligibility, regardless of how many sports you're competing in. So keep that in mind over the longevity in the long term. A use of a season at a Division III is characterized by our first competition. So if we have our first countable competition, that game day and on after that point, you've been considered as having used a season of eligibility. We don't do, other divisions have, termed red shirts. We don't have red shirts. Whether you don't play in any games, whether you play in one game, whether you are there on one game, on the first game, you practice one day after that, anything that's happened on or after that first date of competition has used your season of eligibility. We do have an option for medical hardships or any outstanding hardships if there was to be a catastrophe or a death in the family, or if you were to have a medical hardship. Now, those situations can be applied for through my office. Other than that, we've got to keep that in mind when we're looking at what we can use and what we get back now with the COVID situation happening. So now as we're moving into COVID, so as spring sport athletes, if you competed last year, we want to keep this in mind, you had the full-time status that went against your 10 semester clock. That semester from last spring, also with last seasons of eligibility, you've retained that back, and then you can use it at any juncture in this time. If you are now going into this season, and if for some reason, due to COVID restraints, or if any other unforeseen situation, you are not eligible to use that season of eligibility again, then not only will you get last year's participation and last year's spring semester, you will also get this fall and next spring, along with this whole year back. So you will essentially have had 2 years and 3 semesters that you can use after this year. Winter sport athletes and fall sport athletes, they're only going to get this fall semester and spring. Winter still has the option right now of competing in the spring semester. So as a winter sport and or a spring sport in this year, if you compete in the spring, if we are able to go up to more than 50% of that season and or compete in championships and compete for a championship, you will have used that season of eligibility. You don't retain this semester and you don't retain next semester. However, again, to go back, if you do not compete next semester due to COVID as an institution, you will get, again, a blanket waiver back for this semester as fall and next semester as spring, okay? How that's gonna look, again, with championships, and like Rock discussed, seasons are gonna look abbreviated, right? So each one of our sports has a specific number of games that we're allocated to play. That's based off of a percentage that's decided upon from the conference. So if a certain sports are allocated to use more than 50% based on spring championships, some sports are abbreviated to use less than 50%. Okay, that's again going to depend on whether we're fall, winter, or spring, and where we're at with the number of games. So again, that's going to be a situation that's going to have to be discussed. As of right now, our fall sports still have a potential, even though their fall NCAA championships are canceled, they still have the option as of right now as a conference to play a few games in the spring. Again, that's a situation that's going to be based off that 50%, which we can work at program to program if any of you have specific questions onto what that would look like. And if you were to change your mind coming into spring, and whether you wanted to compete or retain that year, et cetera, all those details, okay? Other than that, we're also used to having a non-traditional season and a traditional season. Winter sports, you're used to coming in on October 15th. You started October 15th with practices and seasons, and then we end in February in middle of spring. The situation is going to be similar to that with what we're allowed to do with practices, but how the NCAA's changed it now due to the situation is that we're looking at a total number of days. It's 114 days instead of weeks and practices in that certain segment of time. Again, all of those details as to what times you're practicing, what days, how often, all of that situation is going to be decided upon program to program, and that's going to be decided upon in conjunction with our administration to ensure, again, the fact that we've got enough days that are spread out over the entire year, fall and spring, that are going to be comprehensive to accumulate a season. Those days are going to be included in on practices. Now with this situation, again, if you are not charged a season of participation against your eligibility, you can practice without having any ramifications on that eligibility, okay? It does not mean we're going to use all 114 days. Again, we're going to be smart and be spreading those out so that we're utilizing the entire fall and spring semesters, but also we're cognizant, of course, as well as to when finals are, the change of the module schedules, and what that's going to look like on the stress and health and well-being of our student athletes. So just like we've similarly done before, we're always mandated with the 1 day off a week at least, and then also additionally, we're always done with a week-long 5-day period right before we go into any finals section. Additionally, with our finals section, because we're changing into Module 1 and Module 2, instead of a regular full-length semester, we will be giving a dead period in October to transition without countable days. That will transition to ensure the fact that if any of your courses have finals or heavier workload attached to them, we will have that dead period in between modules and at the end of Module 2 to ensure the fact that you guys are able to spread out your time responsibly and healthy. One thing to keep in mind, and now again, I'm going to come back to the idea of, can you take a gap semester? Can you take a gap year? What will that look like for your returning eligibility? One thing to keep in mind specifically is if and when our coaches are able to monitor and run essentially workouts, whether that's game film, whether that's team Zooms, leadership activities, monitored workouts, whatever it is that our programs are able to put together, if you are not full-time enrolled, both fall and for spring, if you're not full-time enrolled here at Whittier, you will not be allowed to participate. You essentially become a recruit, and now our coaches are now restricted in the amount and the types of things that they're able to do with you. So we want to keep that in mind. And again, it's required to be full-time. So even if you were to stay at Whittier College in the fall or the spring, drop down to 11 units or less, you would then become ineligible to participate in those activities. So we want to keep that in mind. So things, how can we use our extra season or seasons of eligibility depending? So while here at Whittier, whether you're a first year or whether all the way up to a senior and ready to graduate, it can still be a part of our conversations as to how you can extend your time here at Whittier. Those conversations want to be had on a multitude of fronts. You want to be having those conversations, of course, with your coaching staff, have those conversations with myself in compliance, and then also, of course, your advisors. So your advisor is going to help be able to show you how to properly spread out your units, whether that means fluctuating between holding 12 instead of going all the way up to 15 or 16 unit max. We have that ability to now take maybe 1 or 2 courses from one semester, go down to a 12 unit, and now you can spread that out to an extra semester. Once you get to the end of your time here at Whittier, provided the fact that you're ready to graduate, you do not need to be enrolled full-time in your last semester. Now, again, that's going to be something that you're going to have those conversations with me to ensure the fact that we're going about it appropriately, but we have the ability to extend that time here. When looking at extra time, we can look at utilizing a double major. You can look at going into minors, or you could also participate in your graduate program, whether that graduate program is here with Whittier, or you could also do it at another institution. All of those are options of ways that you can extend that eligibility and use these extra semesters and years. One specific thing you want to be conscious of is that the longer you stay in undergraduate, the more it's going to put stress, or the more it's going to change your financial aid package. Now, we have 2 different types of financial aid packages. We've got our institutional aid. So that's Whittier College funding, whether that's your Poet Work Award, whether that's your John Greenleaf Scholarship, or any other academic scholarships that you've attained by coming to Whittier. Those are institutional grants and funding. Now you have your federal. Federal is going to be your FAFSA. That's the one that you apply for. Examples like that are Cal grants, Pell grants, and federal work study. All of those things from the federal level will have a maximum usage. So for example, if you stay into a 5th year, you might have exhausted your options to use those funding. And with that being said, you can go easily to our financial aid office. You can schedule an appointment with our financial aid office and have those conversations and ask, this is where I'm at with my current funding. If I were to elect to stay an extra year, what would that look like in terms of my federal funding and my federal grants? Now, also additionally, depending on how you're allocating your full-time semesters and how long you're planning on being here, Whittier College is happy to extend your stay here. However, it has to be noted, it has to be a conversation as well. Again, you can't stay here for 8 or 9 years, just continuously racking up majors, right? So we want to have those conversations with admissions and registrars to ensure the fact that, again, you don't defer graduation, plan to be here for a 5th or a 6th season, either way, and then end up realizing that you've run out of your academic scholarship for your undergrad. So all those things want to be considered as we're going through that process. Now, graduate school, once you apply for graduation from Whittier College, if you apply and you graduate from Whittier, there's no going back now. So we're going to be electing to now no longer be an undergraduate. Now we essentially become a graduate student. That also, again, is going to change your federal package from the government, and also change whatever your tuition base might be, whether that's here at Whittier or at outside institutions. So again, we want to be looking at that financial ramifications and what we could afford to do. Now, again, it doesn't matter if you're here at Whittier or if you're at a Division I, a Division II, or an NAIA. If you decide to go to a graduate program, you still have to be full-time enrolled if you want to be participating in those programs. So that's going to have, again, a different effect, whether that be course load or financial ramifications as well. Okay. Let's put ourselves in a situation where we decide we want to take a gap semester, whether that's this semester, we want to take a gap semester next semester, or a full gap year. If you were to decide to withdraw from Whittier, so it's not a full on, you're not saying that you're leaving Whittier, you're just saying you're taking a break. If you decide to do that and take a semester off, you're able to go to a junior college, you're able to take semesters anywhere else at any other institution, and be able potentially to transfer those units in based on whatever Whittier College accepts. However, you want to keep in mind that that full-time status waiver, that's what the one that the NCAA came to us and said, okay, provided the fact that your seasons get canceled due to COVID, we will waive that full-time semester charged against your eligibility. That's an NCAA rule. So if you go to a junior college, whether that's in-state or out-of-state, or you go to an NAIA, anything that's not under the umbrella of NCAA, I cannot guarantee that I can count that, not count that full-time semester against your clock. So if you do go enroll at a junior college full-time, you come back, you transfer in, that one still counts against your 10 semesters, okay? So again, we want to ensure the fact that if you do decide to do that, we advise here that you go under full-time enrolled. You can still go up to 11 units, transfer however many of those in that the institution will take. However, now it doesn't, no matter what, from an eligibility standpoint and your clock, it doesn't count against your full-time semesters that you have, regardless of whether you use them at Whittier or not. Okay. Again, if you have any specific questions about this, feel free to email me and we can talk specifically about what your plan is. Okay. Also a question that had to do with deferring enrollment for this semester or taking a gap semester as well, or a gap year. If you decide to take a gap semester and take a semester off, you do not have to be enrolled anywhere. You can decide to just de-enroll from school at that point and just take the semester off. Either way, it's not going to affect your eligibility or your ability to return to the institution again in the spring or next year. Okay. So this is going to be specifically, things to keep in mind, this is going to be specifically speaking to some of our seniors and or juniors that have the option to graduate early. Again, whether we're a fall, a winter, or a spring, all of us have different abilities to graduate in the fall and still compete, or graduate in the spring and still compete the next semester. So we're going to have a little bit of different situations depending on what season you are. However, if you were to decide to defer graduation, whether that's you would have graduated this fall or you would have graduated this spring, if you decide to not apply for graduation and come back next year, you could be enrolled in simply 1 or 2 or 3 units. You could be under full-time enrolled and take extenuating units that could go to a minor, it could go to a double major, it could go just applying for graduation at that point. If you decide to do that, there's no going back either. So we want to ensure the idea that if you don't apply for graduation and you miss that graduation, you're going to have to wait an entire semester or that entire next year, depending, to get proof of graduation. So if you were to get a job offer and somebody said, okay, I just need a proof of diploma, you would have to wait that out. So we want to really keep that in mind, that it's going to have to be all the way deferred to the next option to graduate in order to get your proof of degree. Okay. And again, a reminder, again, if you're under enrolled full-time, or if you're not enrolled here at Whittier, you're going to be missing out on those opportunities to participate. And that's just as simple as even weights conditioning, if it's leadership activities, team activities, anything like that. Okay. And then I already discussed being full-time at a different institution, that still may count towards your 10 semester clock. So we want to keep that in mind as well. Lastly, a couple questions. If any of you are planned to or are already enrolled in your 1 APA unit that goes to your intercollegiate status. So here at Whittier, we give 1 unit in your season of competition for your participation in that sport. You can elect to use it. You don't have to. You do not have to be enrolled in your intercollegiate course. I, from a compliance stance, automatically enroll you. So I send that over to registrars. They will automatically enroll you in that course. If you find that you are not enrolled in the course, you can email me and I will send over to registrars. If you don't want to be enrolled in the course, all you have to do is go to your schedule and you drop the course. Okay. But again, if you have this situation where you are planning on that 1 unit APA to go towards your graduation units, your completion of graduation units, then we are still going to honor that regardless of whether or not we have a season. For example, this fall, we are still hosting all of our fall APAs. through this first semester. And module spring 1 module is going to be our winter APAs, and spring module 2, I believe, is when our spring APAs are going to be held. We should be able to find those all on your course catalogs right now. But again, once we come to that second semester, I will automatically enroll you in those. Do we still need to do NCAA and ATR paperwork? I'm going to go over that in the next slide more specifically with athletic training room paperwork. But yes, the answer is yes, specifically on one NCAA paperwork, and that's the HIPAA agreement. And that's consent form that we can share emergency information internally within Whittier College. So that's the one form that we're going to need. Other than that, our athletic training forms regarding the physical, regarding all of our consent, those things we're still going to require due to the fact that we're still doing monitored workouts with our coaches. We want to ensure the fact that if there's something that might affect your health or something that our staff should know about, we want to ensure the fact that we're going about it the safest way. And then lastly, can I practice and or compete in outside competition? During the calendar year, this academic calendar year, you are allowed outside of Whittier College to compete in your sport. Now, this is provided you do not have Whittier affiliation. So if you happen to be a team and you want to get 6 or 7 or 10 or 15 people together, obviously dependent on the state guidelines at that juncture, you're able to go out and compete, provided the fact that you are not acting as a part of Whittier College. There's no Whittier College representation, okay? Now, one thing, of course, to keep in mind with that as well is that Whittier College is not liable for that. So if anything were to happen to you, that's going to be all on your own insurance, considering the fact that it's on your own behalf. But if anybody has any questions about that as well, feel free to email me, okay? Okay, Savannah, her contact info is right here on this sheet. She is our head athletic trainer, and she's the one that's been working with any of you regarding SWOL, all of our impact testing, and our physicals, and any other clearances that we might be needing. Her email address and phone number is there. If we are a first year, I'm going to go to this next chart right here. So returners, actually, I'm going to start with our returners on what we still need to do. SWOL, which is our sportswear online program that you've all done last year, we're still going to do that. All you have to do is sign in and log into your already made profile, just update it. Make sure your insurance card is updated. Make sure your physical is uploaded to there, okay? I'll touch back again on the physical portion at the end. So SWOL just needs to be updated for returners, and still our impact baseline testing, we're still going to do that for concussion testing as well. SCAT testing is something that is done in person. We're going to defer that until we get to campus, provided we are allowed to come to campus in the spring. So you do not need to worry about SCAT testing as of right now. And returners also noting for physical. Returners, you don't have to do anything with the health center anymore. You did that your first semester and your first year in. You don't have to do anything with the physical and getting that connected with the health center any longer. The physical just gets uploaded to SWOL. Now, for all of our incoming, our first years and our transfer students, you still have to do SWOL as well. Now, that process can be a little tricky. You got to apply for that. When you apply for it, an email gets sent to Savannah. She approves you and she sends you a link back. So that link is only active for 24 hours. So make sure that when you do that sportswear link and login, you want to be on it and consistent with it. That again is the same thing. We just got to know your general info, your insurance, any conditions that we should be aware of, and then uploading your physical as well there. The physical that goes on to SWOL for all of our first years and transfers is the same exact one that you've got to upload to the health center. Okay, so just upload that same exact copy there. First years and transfers, still do your impact baseline testing. That's your concussion testing. And then SCAT testing, again, don't worry about that. Please note, health center clearances. If any of our incoming, our freshmen, our first years or transfers, if any of you are having anything outstanding in the health center, you got to get a hold of them right away. They are charging a late fee if your profile is not complete. So ensure the fact that you get on that immediately, okay? Lastly, if any of you have any questions, whether that's institutional questions, registrars, CAS, counseling, any questions at all housing, you can always email Right at the bottom of the page, it says Restart 2020. There's an email. It's restart2020@whittier.edu. Feel free to email them and they can answer and they will direct you to any of our departments on campus. Now, also, if you are trying to get a hold of departments on campus and you're not getting feedback in a timely manner, please contact your coach. Your coach can get you in contact with them immediately. Okay, that concludes it.
Great. Thank you very much, Tricia. Once again, there's some contact information. Make sure you take a screenshot or something of this. If you have any questions about anything that you've heard today or tonight, please reach out to us. We will follow up with a recap of this webinar with some FAQs as well as some questions that have been asked over the last 2 days, and so make sure that you're around your emails and that you're reading your emails as we continue to get closer to our September 9th first day of classes. Make sure that once again that you check your emails more frequently as more and more information is being sent from the institution as well as from your coaches and from athletics. So don't hesitate to contact us if you have any questions about that. I hope that you've been in contact with your coaches and your teammates, whether it be online or through text or through phone calls. And I hope that everybody continues to stay safe. Lance, do we have any questions that haven't been answered?
There have been no questions that have come through the chat.
Great. Yesterday we had a few, and those will be in the FAQ that I'll send out probably within the next 72 hours or so. Okay. So once again, take care of yourselves. I want to thank Tricia and Mike and Lance, and I want to thank your coaches and especially you guys for joining on this webinar. Hope you got something out of it, and stay safe. And we'll hope to see you soon. Thanks, guys.